Well, Gary,
Yeah.
let me ask you. My area is the study of the Jesus tradition with regard to some of the mythicist claims, a
Right.
very
Right.
particular type of skepticism.
Right.
There are people at the lay level that would like, my pastor, my boss, is friends with a number of rabbis in the area. And he's friends with them. They're on great terms. He's even friends with some imams in the area.
Sure. Sure.
But they'll just say offhand, old or new, but especially new, if it's a rabbi, it's mythology. This is mythology. So what are some reasons why you don't think this is a particularly fruitful position to take with regard to interpretation of the New Testament data, primarily in the Gospels, but why you don't think this is a fruitful way of going? And we're not even going to the parallels yet. Just a general, this is mythology.
Yeah. First of all, general comment. There is almost a total disconnect between popularists, whether trained pastors, rabbis, imams, but if they're popularists, by that I mean they could be a scholar in their field, but they're not a scholar in ancient mythology and things.
Right.
Or a more common kind, the often angry Jesus mythicist, who people say teasingly still live in their parents' basements, all this, and sometimes sometimes they claim to be scholars and nobody recognizes them at them. That view is probably here's the juxtaposition. The view is the most popular one among them, but among the skeptics, I mean atheists, agnostics, skeptics who are trained in New Testament theology, philosophy, classical literature. They're trained. The juxtaposition is the popularists take it. The other ones won't touch it.
That's right.
And not won't touch it because they don't want to be put in a corner. Won't touch it because they don't think it's legit. In fact, Ben, my TA again, my research assistant, Ben Shaw, and I published an article in Philosophia Christi, very distinguished philosophy journal.
Right.
And the journal, the title says, "Agnostic Jesus Scholars Decimate the Popular Mythicists." I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the title of the article.
Right.
The non-believers who are skeptics go off on the non-believers who take the theory.
Absolutely.
And there's a number of problems. A lot of people don't realize that Bart Ehrman, who's probably the best known skeptic in North America, in his book, Did Jesus Exist? He's got 20 full pages going off on the mythical view. And he cites a very, very well-known, actually the guy just died recently, but a very well-known Jonathan Z. Smith from University of Chicago, who was a professor at large. Usually that title means you can kind of move around departments and teach whatever you want to. But he was a specialist in history of religions. I believe his PhD was from Yale, I think. But and he did a very prominent dissertation against the mythology many years ago. He died, he was pretty elderly. And Ehrman paraphrases Jonathan Z. Smith, and it's a great one-liner. And to paraphrase Jonathan Smith myself, Smith says something like this. He says, in the ancient world, now this is mythology. These people may probably never lived, but in the ancient world, he says, there were stories of people who disappeared and came back, but they never died.
Right.
They died and didn't come back.
Right.
They did all kinds of other things and didn't return. But he said, what you don't have in the ancient world is somebody who was believed to have died and returned. And that's Jonathan Z. Smith, a skeptic, as far as I know. And he is usually quoted as he and another guy named Mark Smith, they're probably quoted as the two most prominent anti-mythicist guys.
Right.
But you wouldn't expect Jonathan Smith to make this up if he didn't think there were good reasons. But he said, we just don't have guys in the ancient world who die. We know they died in the mythology now. We know they died and we know they returned in this little, story about them. I'm making that point because for the majority of these guys, they never lived in space and time. It's just a story about them. And
right.
Jonathan Z. Smith saying we don't even have stories where they die and rose again.
Yeah,
so,
very a strong claim. And
right, it's a scholars versus the non-scholars. Here's one more thing I found, Joe. This is incredible. And I'm not trying to take their name in vain. They're good guys.
Yeah.
But the two main guys today who are known for thinking there are stories like that, but that they have nothing to do with Jesus' resurrection, are John Cook and Tregev Mettinger.
Gotcha.
Now, here's the interesting thing about Mettinger and Cook. They give in their works a list of what they think are the best stories, the best, and they admit these are like nursery rhyme type things. These are Aesop's fables. These guys didn't live. It's Hansel and Gretel.
Yes.
But they do think there are stories about these guys. And they both give a list. Here's what I think are the best evidence cases. That's Cook. The Mettinger says, here's what I think are the best evidence cases. The crazy thing is, they almost totally disagree. And the two guys who are pro, and the ones, for the most part, there are a couple they agree on. But for the most part, the ones that Mettinger says are good, Cook doesn't like. And the ones that Cook says are good, Mettinger doesn't like. It's just one of the oddities. They don't even agree among themselves except in two basic cases.
Right. And two of the more prominent popularizers that would be that don't hold a post in the relevant area, but at least have credentialing would be Robert Price and Richard Carrier. Those are the people, with the academics with whom I interacted in my dissertation, but they have a little bit more solidarity in some of their agreement. They would both agree Romulus and Zalmoxis were their best candidates. So but it's interesting.
And you know what? Romulus and
popularizers.
Romulus and Zalmoxis.
Right. Yeah.
Neither Mettinger nor Cook think they're
neither one. They don't have that's on either of their list. It's amazing. Yeah, they're not. It's not solidarity for sure. So, and I've seen another scholar named, and maybe I'm using scholar. I don't want to use that inappropriately, but a popularizer by the name of Fitzgerald, that anytime you say you're the fringe, he's like, well, so are you Christians on evolution and on Jesus study, all this stuff. So but interestingly, you're right, there are the popularizers, and people want to distance themselves when you start talking about even somebody, Fraser, a legitimate scholar. They don't want to, they're like, I don't agree with most of his stuff. The 12 crucified saviors, these popular, they don't want any part of this. The Zeitgeist video, they don't want any part of it.
You're right. The crucified and risen saviors.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, Carrier warns people about that. About not being and when you mention Fraser, Fraser was a reputable scholar. But we have to remind people he was doing his writings in the 1880s and the 1890s. So it's over 100 years old now, and almost nobody subscribes to his things right now.
No, nobody's been able to replicate that sort of data.